I'm sorry, it's an ideology, and a lot of it's based on terrorism, incompatible with their culture and way of life. And wake up Australia.
With the burqa, do you think people should be able to wear it if they want to wear it?
No, because it's un-Australian, that's not part of our culture. Politics is a tough game. If it gets too hot for you, get out of the kitchen. That's my attitude, whether you're male or female. You've got these feminists out there, these people who just hate men, that's it. I think Australia's caught up with me because I saw the writing on the wall. You've got to, in politics, you've got to have a vision for the future. But why shouldn't we have Indian food? Why shouldn't we have Chinese food? And all this other they were saying, I thought, it's got nothing to do with the food. It's about their culture, their beliefs, their laws, and it's about not assimilating into the Australian culture. Those people out there who just feel, oh, they could go too far and you're going to offend someone. There's so many precious people out there. It's unbelievable. Everyone wants to, poor me. Yeah. I'm the victim. I'll grow a backbone, will you?
Do you think there are good Muslims? My wife's very, and more so, more right-leaning as she gets older. She's now 30. And she finds that so many women really are quite abusive and angry towards other women that don't exactly agree with them politically. And she says to me all the time, she says, I just find that women hate women a lot of the time. I don't know if you've ever noticed that in your world, but I feel like a lot of young women, particularly, if you don't subscribe to exactly how they operate, they seem to want to go out against you. I don't know why that is.
Especially if they're on the left, definitely. Yeah. They're aggressive, more on the left-leaning way of thinking. I find those people on the right way of thinking don't have that aggression in them. They're more, what can I say, more of a realist in their way of thinking, whereas the left is ideology-based. So
that is the new religion, right? For a lot of young people, they're not religious and they find themselves politically aligning themselves with something so deeply that they will do anything to defend it. It's quite...
but they're the ones that are so lacking knowledge or understanding in the topic, what they're defending. They wouldn't have a clue. You're going to ask all those ones about stood up for Palestine flying flags. Did they understand about the Gaza, about the Jewish, about Israel, the history of it? They wouldn't have a clue. Ask them, did they about Hamas? They didn't have a clue.
Well, only a few months ago, they would have had a Ukrainian flag on. They would have had the Coney 2012 back all those years ago. They sort of just find something that's popular and they jump into it.
Yeah.
I was not surprised, but I was really encouraged to see the patriotism that seemed to have come out over the past, couple of months or the first few months of 2026. Unfortunately, it took Bondi
and Charlie Kirk.
And 100% Charlie Kirk. I was actually in America when Charlie Kirk got shot, and the feeling there, I was in Texas and I was going to do a podcast, the Drinkin' Bros podcast, and they've had Charlie Kirk on. So I arrived as they had found out, and they had a couple of guys that they knew in the feds, and they were getting minute-by-minute reports. And I didn't know Charlie. I'd never met him. I knew a lot of people that knew him personally. Yeah. And it was just crushing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Even if you weren't, his best friend or aligned with him perfectly politically.
No, I didn't know a lot about him, actually. And then after his death, I watched some of those interviews and I thought, wow, very touching.
Yeah.
Very informative. And he was so persuasive. He knew his stuff. He knew how to bait the argument. And they didn't, some of them, listened to what he had to say, and others I felt were probably a bit embarrassed by it, that they weren't as knowledgeable as what they thought they were.
He was an excellent debater. He was fantastic at it. But he also pushed a really a positive message, I think. Like I'm not a religious person, but he really pushed his religion and said, listen, I do this because I love this, this and this, and this is what I feel. It's all positive. There was no sort of negativity there. It felt like he was really trying to help people in a sense. And perhaps some people would disagree with that, but at least he was having a conversation. And we don't have that. Well, a lot of people are terrified of having that now, particularly here in this country. And I've made probably way too many YouTube videos on free speech, but it's something I'm extremely passionate about. And it's something that I am shocked that we don't have embedded in our constitution somewhere. I know we have small protections, implied protections, but very little. And for me being in America a lot of time, they cannot believe that we aren't protected the way we should be.
Yeah. Well, I tried to actually move a private member's bill on for a parliament to actually have that put to referendum, put freedom of speech in our constitution. It was voted down. They weren't interested.
Why?
So,
what could possibly stop someone from thinking, you know what, people should be able to say what they need to say, or what they want to say?
Because there's people out there who just feel, they could go too far, and you're going to offend someone. There's so many precious people out there. It's unbelievable. Everyone wants to, poor me. Yeah. I'm the victim. I'll grow a backbone. Will you? Grow up.
Yeah.
If half these people, if they lived in the 50s and 60s, possibly even before then, they wouldn't have survived. They'd be so offended, curling up into a fetal ball and couldn't handle it. They need to just toughen up and just take things, not as seriously. Stop taking yourself so seriously.
I blame universities for that. It seems to be this echo chamber that just really breeds some of the weakest people. And I think it's fantastic that some people feel the need to go to university and become a doctor or whatever. But I think for a lot of people, it's a waste. Like, they have so much time to just go and work, find something, particularly with AI now. You can learn everything, anything you need to find out, perhaps not to be a doctor. Yep. Okay, go to uni for that. But for other things, to run a business, just get involved, get amongst
it. Too many arts degrees for me, as far as I'm concerned.
Why would you do that? I don't understand why you would go into debt.
I think we need a big clean out. I think a lot of these people, they've got to say, listen, I went to university, or it's peer pressure that I'm signing up to go to university. A lot of these people shouldn't go there. They're not academically minded. They'd be better off doing a trade, doing something else with their life, than wasting taxpayers' dollars and going to universities that they'll never pay back to the taxpayer. So that's how I feel about it. Universities, have had a big impact on the last, I'd say, 2 generations at least, the impact that they've had on the way of thinking. And I think it's indoctrination, a lot of it. And I think that over the years they've had these professors, lecturers that are going to university pushing their own ideology and their own agenda onto the kids.
Well, particularly if they're, they've got tenure, or they're kept there, or they're, high up, and they can't be fired. No one would dare question them. And yet they're moulding the youth of tomorrow. They're like, someone who's writing the Bible for these people, for these kids, that they will live and guide themselves through life with for the rest of their days, and teach their children from that. I grew up in a household that was very much a Labor household, but I feel like there's just such a difference between modern Labor and where it was in the 80s, the 70s, where it was all about the workers. And that's still how people seem to quote it. I feel like the political spectrum has changed so much, where One Nation, where people might have looked at it 10, 20 years ago, if it was there, and said, yes, that's very far right. And now it's a moderate opinion. It's almost the silent majority's opinion. It relates to the opinions that you may have. Maybe not every opinion, but at least it's in the same conversation.
I think Australia's caught up with me because I saw the writing on the wall. In politics, you've got to have a vision for the future. I think we lack that with a lot of our politicians. And you have to have an understanding of the impact that your legislation will have on the country and the people. And a lot of politicians can't even think that far ahead. They don't even know what's in the legislation. They just go along and vote with the party lines on a bill or legislation that's put before them. So over the years, we've tried to appease, not to offend people, and we've headed down this path of division that's in Australia. Multiculturalism was supposed to be a melting pot right around the whole world, and that was bringing people in from different cultures to respect their culture, and they were going to maintain their culture, really who they are. Stupid people were thinking, why shouldn't we have Indian food? Why shouldn't we have Chinese food? And all this other they were saying. I thought, it's got nothing to do with the food. It's about their culture, their beliefs, their laws, their understanding, how they're treated. And it's about not assimilating into the Australian culture and becoming Australian.
So the question, to push back on it, people would say, well, what is the Australian culture?
Well, that's what I say to people. If you ask that question, you've never travelled around the world.
Yeah.
So you know damn well what a Japanese culture is, don't you? Or a Chinese culture, and you go there, or Indian culture, or even a British culture. You can see the difference there. So we have an Australian culture. We don't believe that we have a culture because we're surrounded by it all the time. And it's definitely, you know, our laws are part of our culture. You know, different things that we may do, it's all part, you know, our activities, our lifestyle, that's all the Australian culture. So it is very important what we teach in our educational system. It's all part of our Australian culture, our history. It's a part of the Australian culture.
I would say, and how I always put it when it comes to Australian culture is, think if you've ever been to America and you've been there for a couple of months and you get on that Qantas flight and you hear Australian accents, and you're just like, oh, thank the Lord I am home, you know, like you just feel safe. You feel like you're just around good people. People start helping you with your bags. You've got a baby. It's all good. That's the beautiful thing. And that's what I think. There's a lot of AI things around at the moment where they show this nostalgic image of what Australia once was. You go to, you know, it's not Australian, but Video Easy and these type of places back in the 90s when I was born in 1993. And when you go out, you'd go to Video Easy and you'd go down to your local fish and chip shop, wherever that happens to be, and you'd watch your movie or you'd get your PlayStation game, those type of things. Pokemon was a thing, all that type of stuff. People are very nostalgic because I feel like they miss a lot. They miss a time where things were more relaxed. And it's not just youth. It seems to be the country
I missed
itself.
when I was here. I grew up about 5 k's down the road from here.
Really?
Yeah, so Wollongabba.
Yep.
So that's home for me at the Gabba.
Yeah, right.
And so anyway, I see the change that's happened. Oh, the Story Bridge was all here when I was growing up. Remember it quite well. But you know, the country's changed so much that I am nostalgic for what happened, you know, in the past. I could actually go to, at 14 years of age, I'd get on a tram and I'd actually go over and play softball. No parents with me. My parents were working at the time. So at that age, you know, go to the matches. I'd go to the basketball on a night at the...
You felt safe?
Yeah, of course. Could travel anywhere.
We were in Brisbane today and with my son, he's 3, with my wife and her mum, and we didn't feel safe on this because there's so many, like, and, you know, obviously people are in horrible situations, but so many homeless people, so many people who look like they're, you know, engaging in illicit substances, all these type of things. And we didn't feel safe. We felt similar to how we felt in LA a couple of months ago. And that's what I worry about with cities.
But this is Brisbane. This is Melbourne.
I know.
You probably wouldn't set foot in Melbourne.
Well, I'm not really welcome in Melbourne. I've been cancelled too many times to go to Melbourne. Yeah. I don't think we could go to Melbourne.
I think they've changed their opinion about me. I think they're all screaming for me to go down to Melbourne now.
You get to the outer suburbs. They are so sick of this. What's his name? Adam Band, who used to be the leader of the Greens. I was where we were staying when I was doing the comedy festival a couple of years ago. He was running, and you see signs up everywhere in front of people's houses. I was like, imagine the conversation having to actually talk to these people, and that's the person they want to represent them. But yeah, Melbourne is a strange place. It's but you watch it fall apart too. Like you look at places like the UK, all these places that lean into the left wing, they fall apart. San Francisco falls apart. And that's and people say, oh, you're being ridiculous. So that's not going to happen here. That will absolutely happen here. It's only getting worse unless something is done about it.
Escalating crime. That's an impact of it.
Queensland particularly. I'm so happy that at least the Premier has done something. Like he's trying to lock people up.
Well, a lot of those kids they're sending to detention, you know, not detention centres, but similar. So they're not really going to... Like
boys' home, that type of thing,
Yeah, they're not really going to prison. But the crime rate has come down. I'll give him credit for that. It has. We need to be dealing with this in classrooms. And the problem is that the teachers can't handle it. The authority of the teachers has been taken off them to discipline the kids in the classroom. And we've got the last standing of, you know, most countries around the world on how we deal with our kids in the classroom. There's not enough discipline and the teachers can't handle it.
You could say the same about the police too. Like
that's right.
They can't do anything. What are they going to do?
That's right. And that starts with our laws, our legislation being brought in. I blame the court system as well, that they're not dealt with. accordingly for the crime committed, and they've just slapped on the wrist and set loose. And these kids that go out there, they're untouchable, become untouchable.
And they know that, and that's why they do it.
Yep.
I've never understood that, and I guess it comes to my upbringing, why you would do those type of things. But I guess as a young dude, you feel untouchable, then you work out that you're untouchable, and then the more and more evidence that comes into your brain that you're untouchable, and you just do your thing. You do whatever you want to do for that high of doing something that's illegal. I think it's important to talk about something that I speak about a lot, and that is toxic masculinity. That idea that men and boys are inherently toxic and there's nothing you can do about it. This is something that's being fed into young men at schools, young boys as kindergarten kids. Alongside Welcome to Countries and alongside gender theory, there is this, for some reason, these kids are being indoctrinated into learning that they are the problem. And I see that as something that is only going to harm young men as they get older.
Totally right.
I worry. As I said, I've got a son who will be in school in a couple of years if I don't find out a way to homeschool him. But how do we fix that? What can we do? Is it fixable?
I think it is, but you just put a stop to it, so you don't allow that to happen. All these advertising that they do on billboards and on the TV that men must take responsibility for their actions, that type of thing. And this has all come through domestic violence, that they're accusing men of mainly the domestic violence. The stats say 25% of domestic violence is attributed to women.
Okay.
Women are more inclined to actually murder their children in the stats that we've have been able to collect. So it's wrongly placed in blaming men. And there'd be a lot more domestic violence by women if it was reported. Men don't tend to report it as much. I think men have been, in a lot of cases, the victims. And what I'd like to do with domestic violence is put it in categories, from the mildest up to the extreme in domestic violence. And the judges look at that and they say, okay, this is mild. Okay, they've texted, I want to see my child. I want to see my child. That's not extreme domestic violence. It's someone who's actually getting, belted around, beaten up.
Yeah.
And I think we need to take an approach with this, because our police, about 75% of their time is dealt with domestic violence. They've got to drop everything else to go to a domestic violence. It could be just an argument that someone's having. And it's a shame our society's got to that. Yes, we've got to protect those ones out there that are vulnerable and could attribute to domestic violence. But families will have their ups and downs, and I think, our society's gone where a lot of people are facing depression, a lot of hardships, a lot of stress. It's all, grown so much over the years that it's happened. But you're right about men and boys, and I am very protective of men and boys, because I've had my father, my uncles, my cousins, three of my sons, and guess what? Domestic violence wasn't never around. And I will not stand back and see men and young boys persecuted because they're males and thinking they are always the bad people. They're not. You deal with the person, the individual that is the wrong person here, whether it be male or female.
I don't think a lot of women have that approach. And when I say women, I shouldn't say just women, but I don't think a lot of women have that approach until they have sons. And they go, hang on a second, this isn't the enemy. And I'm talking about women like today who grow up, they go to university and they learn these things. They learn that men are the problem. But then they have a son and they go, this is just a little baby that I'm moulding. And obviously, I think domestic violence, a lot of it comes down to, and like with any crime, comes down to parenting and what they are allowed to get away with and how they learn and the environment they're in. And in saying that, there's a lot of people that grow up in terrible households that become wonderful people. So, maybe it's something else as well.
The government has enabled a lot to encourage domestic violence. So these women can go out there and claim domestic violence, and then the husband's thrown out of the house. They're given $5,000 resettlement if they're out of the house. A lot of this has been encouraged by these activist groups, the feminist organisations that have supported these women. I'm not against supporting women. I went through domestic violence myself, but it hasn't made me bitter. I try to be fair and just right across the board for everyone. And stop pigeonholing people, whether they're male or whether they're female, this type of thing. Deal it on an individual case, which is totally different. don't use domestic violence to actually deny the father, mainly the father, and it does happen with him in time, the right to spend time and see their children. I am so opposed to that.
I think there's a lot of people that agree with you. And I hear a lot of people, I see comments when I've ever talked about this, and people say, no, that doesn't happen. There is not a bias against men in the family court system. And then I get emails from dudes who say completely the opposite, where they're like, mate,
it's happening.
It's
crazy.
I
had a judge who was David Collier, from a former judge in the family law courts, and from Parramatta. And he was retired. He was in it for 14 years. He's well and truly retired. And he said, you know, the false allegations that were brought up, and especially sex allegations made against the fathers to deny them the right to actually see their children, it's evident. You know, I've heard this not from one judge, but other judges. And what annoys me is that we know it's happening. He's a judge. How many cases of perjury did he put across the witness who discloses? Until in our court system we implement charges of perjury against those who tell lies in court cases, regardless of whether it's family law, right across the board with everything, then we might start getting the truth in our legal system.
I think that once again, it's taking teams, isn't it? It's like if you dare say that some men there's a bias against some men in the family law courts, then you're on team, you know, that's a right-wing talking point. Or if you don't say that, you know, the women are receiving all of the domestic violence and all men are bad and all that type of stuff, then that's a left-wing talking point, and each team has to keep their talking points. I feel like the centrist opinion where you take the best from both worlds, that's how I've always tried to be. But I feel like that's not you can't right now. Like, you can't play on the left-hand team if you dare listen to any of these talking points, and you can't play on the right-hand team if you do the opposite. And do you feel like enough people, or too many people perhaps, are playing teams here? Like, is there room for people to be in the middle?
I think we have to find the middle of the road, what's fair and just right across the board for people. People have pushed their own agenda. Yes, they are. Like I said, you've got these feminists out there, these people who just hate men, that's it. And we're going to have a go at men in general. And it shouldn't be looked at that way. I have a different perspective. If you bring in the laws and legislation that is going to make it fair and just, and you start with your family law courts, you start with domestic violence, put it in a category, you actually deal with perjury. You actually start with the child support as well, because that's the driving factor with a lot of people, to actually deny the other partner the right to have the children because of what they get in child support. So right across the board, I think the whole system is not working. It's broken down, and we have to do something about it. You know, every year I go out to the lawns of Parliament in about November, December, and on that those Parliament lawns, we have last year, it was 2,459 boots of men and boys have suicided.
Yes.
That's disgusting. It really is, and yet that's not spoken about.
I've had three guys within 400-500 metres of my house commit suicide. I didn't know them, but I went to like the functions afterwards. And the devastation that happens from that. 75% of suicides are men, if not more, maybe 80% now. And yet, men are the problem. Men are the enemy. Men are bad people.
We don't talk about it. We don't have, you know, a minister for men. We don't, you know, speak about men's health, men's how they're treated, and, you know, as you know, keep pushing women all the time. The same pay, same job, same pay. We have it.
Of course.
We have it.
It's illegal not to do that.
Correct. And you think that these women are underpaid. They're not underpaid. And what they're saying is, oh, well, a woman isn't at work all the time. She has to have the children all the rest of it. Well, listen, love, you have the equipment. That's what you're here for. You made the choice to have the child, you know, so that's the way it goes. That's
if you don't want to interrupt your career, don't have a baby.
Correct. So why? But to put out this perception that women don't get the same pay as men, they do. If you're an airline pilot And you're male and female, you get paid the same. If you're a steward, you get the same. If you work at barista, you get paid the same. If you want to go and dig a trench, you get paid the same.
Yes, absolutely. And that's just a talking point, though, to say, well, the pay gap exists and this is the same thing. It's all religious, right? It's the same thing with the vaccines.
It's all lies. It's lies because people don't know any differently. And so they push this agenda. Poor women. Women have actually risen, come up through the ranks and everything like that. And I was speaking to these girls one time. They have the regional get-together of these girls from around the country, and they live in rural and regional areas. And I said, congratulations, that's great that you're doing this. Do you have a program like this for the boys? Oh, no, just for the girls. And I said, well, I think it's wonderful that you do this. But you know what? You keep pushing women all the time. You need them in corporate sectors. We need to have them in Parliament. And, we've got to have a quota system, all the rest of it. Well, what do I tell my sons then? Don't bother going to university. Don't study because you know what? You're not the right sex to get a job. So what do we tell the boys out there? And then on top of it, this gender quota, I will not have it in my party. You won't get to be a candidate based on what sex you are.
But why would you want
that? Female.
Why would you want that as a woman?
Parties do.
Exactly.
And then what happens is that when they're government or in shadow, they have to give so many to shadow ministries or minister to a female. And guess what? If they're absolutely hopeless, you've got someone in that position that is minister of this portfolio who wouldn't have a clue what the hell they're doing. And, people are making, they're going to have such an impact on this country in legislation that they're introducing when they wouldn't have a clue and they're not the best person for the job.
But why, as a woman, why would you want that? Why would you want to be given the upper hand just because of your sex? Like, it seems like such a backhander.
Yes.
Like it seems so rude.
You have no idea how many times I've been asked, do I feel that I've been treated totally different because I'm a female?
Right.
I said, no.
No.
It's because my politics of who I am. Yeah. Don't play that card with me. I'm not interested in playing that card. Never have played that card. All right? Politics is a tough game. If it gets too hot for you, get out of the kitchen. That's my attitude, whether you're male or female.
I see a lot of the people who you come up against, Patman, that's Payman. I see even people like Marine Faruqi. They seem to,
and
once things, they get hot under the collar and they just start blaming things that no one's brought up, no one's talking about, and that's their argument. It's a very weak defensive set.
Very childish, immature, pathetic in their debate and how to deal with me. So just throw the word out there: racist. The three of them. It's pathetic. It really is. And they're supposed to be members of Parliament representing the public out there. I've got no time for any one of them, actually, to tell you the truth.
What do you think a normal person, their opinion is of you and your party? Do you think it's swinging? I know a lot, obviously 23% rise in the polls, or it's up to 23% now, or it may be higher now. That was a couple of months ago.
Nationally, 25 to 30% for Labor. Yeah. So it has in different states. It's different. It could be 30% here in Queensland.
Do you think that's swinging voters who 10 years ago were like, no, I would never vote for Pauline Hanson?
Correct. Yes.
Why do you think that is?
They can see the way the country's going. A lot of people are hurting with cost of living pressures. They can't, own their own home. They can see the demise of the country. They can see the poor government that's happening. They feel they've been ignored. They don't trust their politicians. There's no Australian pride anymore. And then you've got a lot of it coming from the migrants who've come here for a better way of life. And they're really angry because they're saying, I don't want this country to become like the place I left. And
How many people do you reckon are coming from England saying that? I reckon it's a lot.
Yeah,
I reckon a lot of people.
Even a lot of Asians as well.
Right.
I get a lot of support from Asians coming to Australia, and they feel exactly the same.
Well, the Japanese, they won't cop it over there.
No, they don't.
No, they're like, nah, you're not. No, if you want to come here, yeah, sure, come join us. But this is how, and they do it to Australians too. This is how we operate. Okay, you don't walk around with a coffee cup. Okay, sip it in the streets. That's offensive. Okay, that's how we do it here. And people go, all right, fair enough. That's how we do it. You're in someone else's house. You play by their rules. But that doesn't happen here. That's because, well,
we've got a multicultural society. Just bring in the women. Let them wear the burqa. Let them have their 4 wives down there.
With the burqa, This is how I think about it. Do you think people should be able to wear it if they want to wear it?
No.
Why?
No, because it's un-Australian. That's not part of our culture. I think, and other countries have found, 24 countries around the world have actually got rid of the burqa. So they've made it illegal. Why? Because people weren't assimilating. So those people wear the burqa. How easy do you think it's going to be for them to get a job? So if they're wearing the burqa, don't get employment, who's going to support them?
Yeah. Do you think though that that's impinging on someone's freedom of speech or freedom of religion? And do you think that you should be able to wear whatever you...
religion, because it's not a religious requirement to wear a burqa. Okay. So it's not part of... It's not
more
even
of a cultural thing.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's what they've implemented to control the women, because their attitude is cover up. If you don't cover up and you have yourself covered up completely, well then you're leaving yourself open for...
Right.
And that's their attitude. That's their mindset. So women who are not covered up, well, you're...
Well, and that is... A lot of people will push back on that. I feel like that is the origin, though. That's the origin story of where this burqa has come from.
It's happening in England. That's their attitude. In a lot of these countries now that are dominated by a lot of these radicals that are over there, these young men, and it was estimated that about 20,000 women have been actually in these European countries, because that's their attitude. The women aren't covered up, so therefore... You're leaving yourself wide open.
Open slather, yeah.
And then you have female circumcision. That's prominent. That's happening all the time. Here in a couple of Sydney hospitals, they're actually reversing that treatment they've done. They're sending women overseas and here in the backyards to have that happen to them. It's part of their cultural background. It's not religious.
There is people I know there's a few stories from the UK that people have used the defence that they didn't know that you weren't supposed to do that to women. That was the defence for be it sexual assault, be it... They didn't know that was how you were supposed to act.
Did they get off? But if you walk in and you steal something out of the shop and you walk out, then you can use the same excuse. Well, I didn't know. I couldn't take it.
Yeah.
It's not an excuse. I'm sorry. You know, and we find that in a lot of other parts of the law, you can't use that as a form of defence because you didn't know. That's the law.
Do you think there are good Muslims?
I believe that there are Muslims out there who just want to live in peace and harmony and prosperity in their life and to get on with their life. But because it's so unsure, we don't know their beliefs. You know, if you've got radical Islam that is growing throughout the world, and what we've got to be prepared for is to ensure that we don't see Sharia law come in here. But Sharia law is part of that radical Islam. And pushing their own culture. Sharia law, we've got, halal, we've got the banking sector, we've got multiple marriages, they can have up to 4 wives. This is all happening in Australia. These are all things.
I think it was 12 kids were married off last year or over the last couple of years in New South Wales.
Yeah.
I did a video on it a couple of weeks ago.
Increased, 91 that have actually...
really?
Yeah.
Across the country?
Yeah.
It's dramatic.
That's right. So
it's dramatic.
So it increased. I think it increased by a third from the previous year. So you have got them going overseas, these child marriages there.
To have them and then come back.
Yeah, this is not religious. This is a culture that's incompatible with the Australian way of life.
Yes.
And, all these having in Trafalgar Square in Britain, where they all, wanted to pray there. Come on, that's a form of dominance.
It's certainly a power play, isn't it?
Of course it's a power play.
It's certainly, people stop and they see that and they go, okay.
Yeah, wow. But see, I don't believe that should be allowed. It's a power play. It's like, we're going to do what we want to do.
But where do you say, okay, you can do what you would like with your freedom of speech, but you can't do that?
That's not freedom of speech. That's a domination. That's a religious domination. That's what that is.
If they were doing it out of people's way, would that be okay?
Do it in your mosque. Go and do it in your own home.
Yeah.
Don't do it in public place.
Mm-hmm.
And then the same thing as what's happening in countries now, the prayer that's being played at the rise of the sun every morning.
That's odd. That's odd.
Well, okay. Well, then what's the difference with that to doing your prayers?
Well, no, I think it's odd that people would do that because I feel like that's so in your face. it's pushing religion on other people who don't want to. Like, I wouldn't do that personally. I wouldn't do that with one. If I had my Spotify playlist playing that loud, I would feel very guilty, like I've done something wrong. Like I shouldn't be doing this to other people.
But you're not allowed to speak out about it. These people are fed up with it. But it's because the dominance that is shown right along, and the fear, like Lakemba. How comfortable did the Prime Minister feel in that mosque?
Well, I watched his speech afterwards and he said it was very positive.
Oh, right.
Did you see him say that?
No.
Well, he did. He absolutely did.
I asked you the question, how comfortable do you think he looked?
He was terrified. There's one photo of him tucking like that.
It's like,
he was so scared. And I would have been scared too. I did a joke years ago in my special that was on Amazon. It's now on YouTube. I don't know, where's my camera? There it is. But it was a joke about the Christchurch massacre, a horrible event. But I joke about horrible things all the time. That is my type of humour. It's what I enjoy. And making jokes about horrific things, I think, is a really appropriate way for people to deal with horrible, horrible pain. Okay. And I received, it was somewhere in the neighbourhood, and I'm not being hyperbolic, about 60,000 death threats through Instagram. It was...
Did you get a fatwa?
I didn't have a fatwa. I don't think anyone declared a fatwa on my head, but it was as close. Did you get one of those?
No.
Okay.
I haven't had a fatwa.
That's nice. Well, one day if we ever get one, we'll have a glass of wine or something to celebrate. But it was very scary. That was during COVID too, so I was able to wear a mask and sort of just hide. So that was a positive. One positive through COVID anyway. But I never got that from any other religion. And I feel like I can talk to anyone. And I'm happy to talk to everyone. And I think there's so many different varying levels to religion of how religious people are.
It's the dominance of fear. So once they put fear into people, then they know they can do whatever they want to do. And Devil, that some of them do because they're martyrs. They are so ingrained to their Quran, to Muhammad, to Allah Akbar, that they will say and do. And we know. We've seen it. We've seen the terrorists out there. We've seen the martyrs out there that have taken their own lives just to prove a point. And it's a shame. No other religion behaves like that.
I think there are some people who practice Islam or Islamic, and they have this idea that they've interpreted the Quran and they love their God and they just live normal existences. And I think that they're relatively good people. Obviously, I can't say they're all great, much like I can't say that about a lot of people.
That's right.
But
you can't.
They seem to have, and this is an outrageous thing to say, more per capita than any other religion of violent people. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would agree with you on that
I don't think many people could argue against that.
No.
And that's not to say that I see a Muslim person and I think they're a bad person. I don't feel like that. I like to get to know every person individually before I say...
Well, they're not. That fellow, I can't... Alamed, that fellow who actually, stopped that gun.
Ahmed, I think that was his name.
Yeah, and he's Muslim.
He saw something going on and he put his body on the line for his people.
So you do have ones out there that are, good people. But it's such a, an unsure world out there. I've got to a stage that I just don't trust many people. I don't trust the way the world's gone and the belief in people. How do I know they're telling me the truth? Because under the Islamic religion, they can actually lie to you, befriend you, do whatever they need to do to ingratiate themselves into the country. And then, if you've got issues or jihad was called, and that's what I was saying, if jihad was called, then you've got real problems. You don't know where they stand. This one woman was telling me, she said, I had a real close Muslim friend. And I said to her, just answer me something. If I was out there with another woman and we were drowning and the other woman was Muslim and I'm not, who would you save? She said, of course, the Muslim woman. But you don't know her.
Yeah, wow.
And I'm your best friend.
Yeah.
That's the way they think.
Yeah.
You have to understand the mindset of how deep ingrained, if they're really a true believer of the Quran and of Muhammad and all the rest of it, that's their belief.
Have you spoken to many Muslim people about what you disagree with their faith, or what about their faith you disagree with?
No, I haven't. I've read a lot. I've tried to gain knowledge and experience from it. And when I've spoken, read initially a lot of information, because I've been speaking about this, or even my first main speech to the Senate in 2016, where I spoke about Islam. One of the things I said there has been proven to come right too. But to read the book on Ayan Hussein Ali was very much an eye-opener. And I can't think of the other woman. She moved from Egypt and she went to America. She said, I thought I was getting away from all this, but you can see it slowly encroaching in America, what's happening there, the change. She said, I wish people in the Western world would actually wake up and see what is actually happening. She said, it'll turn to a point that you won't be able to change it. And that's why they use the wording Islamic phobia, Islamophobia. That's a way of counteracting, pushing back, so that, people and I won't discuss it or say anything about it, because they're going to call us
Well, it's the same as sexist. It's the same as homophobic. It's
Correct.
all of that. It's just
Correct.
the word. It's the defence. It's
Correct.
the weak defence
Racist.
too.
So it's using the word to actually push back, so that you won't, you'll feel embarrassed and shut down. You won't discuss this.
Because we should question religion. We should question everything that is shown in front of us. That's how we become a
When it has
intelligent
an
society.
impact on your country, I'm sorry, it's an ideology that is, on a lot of it's based on terrorism, incompatible with their culture and way of life. And wake up Australia, because it's happening in your backyard. It's happening in your suburb. And you have to understand the impact it's going to have. Go and have a look at what happened in Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, these other countries, Afghan, with the Taliban there, Iran with the regime over there. People have to really start to wake up and understand what's happening. It's happening in Canada. Go and ask Sweden now. Where are they with all this? France, Germany.
The UK, yeah. Absolutely.
UK?
It's confronting to see what's happening over there.
Yep.
What would you do with the immigration numbers coming into Australia? Because I've argued that there's too many people, all different people. White people from England, America coming. There's too many people, and people who are born in this country can't buy a house. Everything's too expensive. We can't look after our own. We're not hitting the numbers that we need to be building new homes to put these people in. And people argue with that, saying, no, that's not the reason.
Oh, what do they think the reason is then?
They think foreign ownership. They think landlords. There's a lot of very left-leaning people that say no more landlords. And as someone who I own a house or two,
if you don't have landlords, then where are you going to get the house to rent? Because not everyone can afford to buy a house. Not everyone wants to own their own property, their own house. So they must rent. And especially if they're transient and if they're moving around, why put your roots down in a place that you may not be staying there? So you need to rent. What a stupid comment to make, really. They haven't given it much thought.
I think you'd be surprised at how many people think like that.
Oh, my God.
It's confronting. We'll go back to Melbourne.
Okay. Well, I say to these people, all right, if you don't think immigration is the problem, you don't think that too many people in the country, well, these people, well, how about you put how many bedrooms in your house? 2 or 3? That would say you'd have, 5, 6 people live in your house? How about we invite 20 or 40 people to live in your house?
Well, they're all the people that live in the most expensive suburbs that have these opinions
What's
too.
the difference?
Yeah.
Let's invite more people in your house. Do you think your house is going to be overrun? Do you think you're going to have a decent standard of living in your own home? Why is your own home any different to the country? So that's what I say to them.
There's obviously a lot of room in Australia, but no one lives there. No one lives in these
places. Most of the country is barren. Okay,
yeah,
so
100%. Just fly over it. Fly to Western Australia once in your life. You'll go.
We don't have the
where is everyone?
We don't have the infrastructure. What a stupid thing to say. Again, most people live down the coastal fringes of the country because that's where it's habitable. If we had some vision for the country and built the dams, the water resources, nothing will happen without water, and we haven't built the resources to provide that for us. We can't even, get our resources to give us the prosperity to actually for national security. So these people, it is a combination. Your high immigration. So we had the highest ever on record, we had people coming in 1,800 a day, just under 500,000 for the year, net migration coming in the country. Then on top of that, it is your foreign ownership. We've allowed people to come in here from other countries and buying up housing. and huge numbers that are foreign-owned housing in Australia, which I'd put a stop to. Even your ownership of not only property, whether it's new or whether it's established housing, I wouldn't have foreign ownership, or of the land. Okay, so you can't own productive agricultural land in the hands of foreign ownership. So I'd put a stop to all that.
I think the layman wouldn't really care about any of that until there is a COVID-style lockdown or the world shuts down for a war, whatever reason, and these foreign owners say, well, we're just going to send our crops back to the homeland, wherever they happen to be owned from. Say it's China, say it's wherever. If they're growing crops and they say, listen, we don't want Australians to access it, we're going to send it to our people.
Yeah, you can't stop it.
That's when Australians will care. Then.
If the food's grown here by a foreign country, you cannot stop them from exporting back to their own country.
Yeah, and that's something that people, I think COVID opened the eyes of a lot of people to trust and distrust of government and people who happen to be in power. I think a lot of people just don't trust anyone who's in power anymore, and I think that's a net positive for a lot of reasons. I think a lot of people who would call themselves, a Liberal or a Labor person now find themselves politically homeless. They don't have anyone that they look to for leadership.
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously it's a positive thing for you guys. I think it's a worrying thing for a lot of people too, because they feel lost. And a country that's lost, it loses its way in so many different aspects of life, where they're going, where they want to go, who's coming in, what. I feel like so many people are worried and scared, and I don't think that's the only reason that One Nation has risen in the polls. I don't think it's a fear thing. I think it's a positive thing.
I think a lot of it's they want decisions. They want a vision for the country. They want decisiveness. They want
someone to lead.
They want leadership. Correct. That's what I was about to say. Okay.
Like Albo's just not it.
No.
Like imagine him in the middle of a war, World War II. There's Churchill and Albo.
well,
there's Trump and Albo
now. That did it for me. That speech that he gave last week, the 3 minute 17 second speech to the nation. Yeah, I know.
I tuned in. I got out of the bath. I was in the bath with my little fella. We both got out. We're in a towel. And I said, what is this? This is a disgrace.
Why did I get out of my bath for this?
I was having a lovely bath.
The world was coming to an end.
Soaking my feet. Yeah. I was going to give him a buff and everything. Anyway, I look at him and I go, and even with Dutton, I go, how are these two, the last election, how are these two the front runners in a country of 27, 26 million people? How are these two the only ones that we have leading major parties? It was beyond me.
Yeah. Look, it's people are looking for that decisiveness, that decision, and see that we have got the country's not just up till the next election. They want long-term vision. Where's my life going to take me? Where are you going offering my children, my future generations? Will I have security? Am I going to have, looked after in my old age? This is what people want to know. Can I pay my power bill the next time around? Can I put food on the table for my children? And the government, so all they've done is constant payout, all the time. I will prop you up. I've got a different attitude to it. You've got to make people resilient. You've got to make people responsible for themselves, not this, this taxpayer who's constantly, working hard, getting no relief and feel they're getting nowhere, longer hours, harder working hours, second jobs, third jobs, just to put a roof over their head. And you can have this coming along all the time, pinching the money out of your pocket because they can't control their spending. That's where we need to head. Governments need to pull in their head, control their spending. They have to start providing for the people out there with the incentives, where I believe that we need to then work in such a way that we give people more money in their own pockets to make them self-sufficient instead of relying on government handouts. 50% of every household out there is on some sort of government teat.
Well, the NDIS too. I think that comes into this play as well.
Correct.
And I think the NDIS, for my brother, he's severely autistic. and he benefits from it greatly. It's a wonderful thing for him, but there's so many people that are just fleecing it for everything that it's worth.
Of course I do.
And I used to think that universal basic income was a really interesting concept until COVID and people started getting paid to just sit at home. And then my local coffee shop can't get workers now still because they're like, well, no one wants to work for the normal wage.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, what, do you pay them more? Well, the price of coffee hasn't gone up that much. I think that people want handouts, and that's worrying. They're used to it.
We can't survive on that. It's unsustainable.
Mm.
And you can't keep giving the handouts all the time. You've got to give people the tools to actually go out there, and you have to work. And it starts in the educational system.
Mm.
And, this attitude is there's no competition in our classrooms. Even with classes, where you come in class anymore. We did, I was in a class of 54. So you never get that these days. How the hell could you have a class of 54 kids in it? But we were graded as well where we came to class. And, I think that's a good thing because not everyone is a winner. And you have to push yourself to the next level to do better and to improve yourself in life. We're not doing that. Even in, sporting, sometimes the kids, everyone received the badge.
Participation trophies, this type of thing. We're still reeling from that movement that allowed everyone to be included. And
see, it's not setting them up for the real world.
It's nice.
And then we have a real problem out here with people with depression. Then we have people on drugs. And what are we doing to stop it? We're testing their pills at these festivals. I'll come up, line up, we'll test your illegal pills and see if it's safe to take. What message are we sending to these people? Because it's illegal to have drugs, but we're going to test your pill and you can go and take it. It's just ridiculous.
I think there's such a broad conversation to be had in the circles of pharmaceuticals, because obviously there's so much money involved in pharmaceuticals and legal drugs, and there are so many people walking around stoned out of their minds on legal drugs and as well as illegal drugs. A lot of these
people can't work in the mines, and these are the ones that are drug tested because they are on drugs.
Yeah.
And that's why they can't get jobs.
Yeah.
And that's why you can't drug test. They can't get these jobs. Drugs is a scourge on our society, on people's mental health, their well-being, everything.
It has to come down to stopping people making bad personal decisions, because if you make them illegal, then it just props up organised crime. If you make more and more of them illegal, it props it up even more.
No, it's educating the people and impacting what taking these drugs is going to impact on your life.
Agreed. Personal decisions, making them more resilient, making them be able to I know the just say no thing is sort of like people look at that and go, oh yeah, but are people really going to listen to that? But there comes a point where you go, well, either you continue taking pills, you continue smoking, you continue whatever you're doing your entire existence, your entire childhood, then you get hooked, or you just go...
Yeah, and then they get hooked and they can't pay it. So what happens then? Crime. Yeah. Then they're breaking into to steal cars or goods or whatever to pay for their habit.
Mm.
So it's a catch-22. It goes on and on, a revolving door.
I was around drugs a lot. I used to play footy and I was around it a lot. I never really...
See, I never saw it.
I've seen a lot.
I haven't.
And it was confronting. I was 18 and that was the culture. And I never really got involved in it because I was fearful of what would happen when I wasn't in control of myself. So I never let it happen. But I think a lot of people feel they can control it, but then you get one bad whatever because there's no testing or anything that type of stuff. Well, not testing, but because people are making it in their garage. Who knows what they're making it with. And you lose it. You do something dumb. You hurt someone. You harm someone. Domestic violence, whatever. And your life's ruined. And I think people just need to go, hey, it's fun.
I never had the drug. I never saw the drugs in the 60s or 70s or 80s. I've never seen it. I didn't need to take drugs. My family never needed to take. My sisters, my brothers never needed to take it. Even at school, never had it. Never saw it. What the hell's changed in our society?
I think
why do people have to rely on drugs?
People don't see the 10 years of taking those drugs. They see the first year and everything's fine. No one's, you haven't become a meth head yet. But 10 years down the track, that's when it all falls apart.
Why do they feel they have to take drugs? What is wrong with them? Where's it? Where's their inner strength to say you can deny that? You don't have to take it.
Yeah.
You're a fool because someone else says, "I'll take it, mate. It's going to make you feel good."
Yeah.
Nothing's going to make you feel good. Maybe for this period of time. What about the rest of the time?
Well, why do they say yes to their first cigarette or their first alcoholic beverage? Obviously, these things are much more, they're considered not as harmful. Well, cigarettes obviously very harmful, but your first drink, you might get peer pressured into that. I think it just comes down to making choices for yourself. And some people, unfortunately, will just run down that road.
Yeah, but cigarettes and alcohol is legal.
Yeah.
Drugs aren't.
Sure.
So I think there is a big difference there because the impact. So people need, again, I'll go back to the educational system. I would have people in classrooms talking to these kids when they're about 12 or 13 or 14, and you'd actually put it up on the screen. You want to take this? This is what's going to happen to you.
Well, they do that.
Oh, how often did they do it?
I remember back to health class, we were looking at this. We're looking at this young lady who passed away from an ecstasy pill. We looked at her entire family breaking down, crying. And, I knew people...
Did that impact on you? Is that why you never took drugs?
No, that's not why. I think it's more of a decision that comes from like an inner, as you said, an inner strength.
Yeah, and through the family home.
Personal resolve, whatever that is. But I think that the alcohol side of things, even though it's legal, I think if you looked at the amount of people that die from ecstasy in comparison to die from things related to alcohol, I think alcohol would probably beat it. Yeah. There's so many people abuse that to no end and for their entire lives and depend on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I drink very rarely. I might have a couple of beers over a month period. I might have 3, and that's probably because I've got a youngster at home and I don't want to see him. My dad never drank in front of me, and I feel like I don't really want to do that either. But yeah, it's personal resolve. Now, Pauline, you've had a massive day, so I'm going to shut up. But I want to know, if you move some things around in your political career and you were running for Prime Minister, what would you do day one? Is there a couple of things that you would do day one? That's what you'd get started.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'd get rid of all the regulations and all the control and all the black, red and green tape that are stopping the development of this nation. And we've got to become self-sufficient and start drilling.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Drill, baby, drill
for
gas and oil. And to make sure the country runs properly. Get rid of the climate change policy. I'd get rid of the climate change department and all this subsidies to multinational companies and everyone. That'll be all gone. Our policies would not be built around climate change, net zero, or the Paris Agreement. Get out of that. Once you get out of that, you will address and get the coal-fired power stations going to deliver cheap power to people out there. Give people incentives to go and start up industries, manufacturing, create those jobs out there. So there are a lot of things. I think the immigration needs to be cut right back. I've got 130,000 a year. All these foreign students flooding in the country who are just using the back door to get into the country. That would be overseen. Once they finish their degrees out of the country, you want to apply here, you apply for your country to migrate here.
I went to America to do some work, some shows, and to get a visa to work in America is the most expensive, ridiculous process that I've ever been a part of.
I had to go through it to get a visa to go to America at the end of last year. My God.
I had to prove I'm an alien of extraordinary ability. It's madness.
It is. And I thought, wow, this is what we've got to have in this country.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
I'm all for that. I take my hat off to America. You're really protecting your borders.
Yeah, let's look after this country first.
Yeah.
Pauline Anson, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on.